Hi everyone, Dr. Jeremy Fowl here with Experience Wellness Chiropractic. I'm super excited to get on with you today and just share a little bit of our experience. Over the last 8 years, I've had the opportunity to be in a pediatric and family-based practice, working with kiddos just like yours that are sensory seeking, that are proprioceptive seeking kids. And so if the topic of our little flags over the last few days have grabbed your attention, I'm super glad that you're here, because we see it all the time, and it's something that we're seeing more and more. Kids that are overwhelmed, needing sensory input, whether it's they're jumping and moving all the time, or they're oral fixated and they're biting and they're clenching, or they're chewing on their shirt. They can't stop moving, they're fidgeting, all of these different ways that kids need and desire and really force this proprioceptive input into their brains. It's something that we've really come to specialize in helping these kids calm their bodies over the last, like I said, 8 years that we've been in this practice. So let's just start with this big P word, proprioception. What is it, right? Because it's a big word, and it's really quite easy to understand, because really when we talk about this word proprioception, it's really just one of the body's ways to communicate with the brain, right? There's this brain-body communication that you really have kind of a two-way highway of information. You have all of this sensory information that's coming into your brain, and then your brain has this ability to coordinate after it perceives the information and basically send out a proper response. And proprioception is one of the ways that your body sends sensory information up to your brain. So the cool thing is that sensory information, the proprioceptive sensory information, is actually like really good calming messaging going up to your brain. You have two different types of sensory messengers. You've got this proprioceptive input on one side versus what we call nociceptive input on the other side. And the easiest way that I like to explain this is think of proprioception as like Kenny G, right? It's this soft music that can play in the background that's really calming and soothing and puts your brain at ease. That's what tells your brain where are all of the joints in your body, where are they in space, what's my body doing? So it's like almost like this confirming just calmness to your brain that say everything's really doing what it should be in all of the joint systems in my body. On the other side of that, so proprioception is Kenny G. The other side of that, you have this nociception, which is almost like, in my world, what I call is like that screamo death metal music. It's just loud, it's noise, it's something that you can't ignore. It's really, really difficult to accomplish anything else or to focus anywhere else when you have this nociceptive screamo death metal music coming into your brain all of the time. So if we had an option, think about this for yourself, and then we'll kind of forecast this onto our kids, is that if you had an option to go through your daily life with a background music playing all of the time, and the options were, soft Kenny G versus screamo death metal, almost everyone would pick Kenny G, right? Because it's something that it's ease, it's calming, it's something that you can really, you can work with, right? You can accomplish other things. You don't have to focus on that all the time. When there's just noise happening in your brain at all times, it becomes very, very difficult to get anything else done. It becomes very, very difficult to focus. It becomes very, very difficult to learn and to retain information when you have this noisy brain all of the time, because it's trying to filter out this loud music that's coming in all the time. So how does that play into chiropractic? How does that play into what's going on within your body? Well, the reason that this matters, the reason that proprioception versus nociception matters, is that only one car can be driving up to your brain at any given time, right? So you can't have an area of your body that has really good alignment and really good motion, and everything's moving really nicely and it's at ease and it's sending proprioception up to your brain that says everything is calm. The same area can also be sending nociception and sending loud noise up to the brain saying something's wrong, right? So we can only have one thing happening at a time. And so to think about that, we go, all right, well, if we can only have good messaging saying everything's at ease, or negative messaging saying that something isn't right, we need to pay attention to it at any given time, then we need to figure out, well, how can we enhance the good messaging, and or how can we reduce the poor messaging? Before we get into how we do that, I just want to take a minute to talk about where these proprioceptive receptors are. Where is all of this this messaging coming from? So these proprioceptors, these neural messengers, they're in every single joint in your entire body, right? So they're in every single joint in your spine, they're in your jaw, they're in all of your fingers, they're in your toes, they're in your hips and knees, they're in your pelvis. And the really, really cool thing is that 60% of all proprioception in your entire body comes from your spine and pelvis. So now we go, all right, if the vast majority of all of this good messaging that's going up to your brain comes from your spine and pelvis, it becomes all the more important to pay attention to how your spine and pelvis are moving. Right, so the other 40% are knees and ankles and toes and fingers and hands and joints and shoulders and all of those things and all of these joints, but the majority is in your spine and pelvis. And even more important than that, 33% of that proprioception comes from the top 3 vertebrae in your neck, so occiput, C1, C2. So your body has very, very tight control, or it has a very, very keen awareness of what's happening in the upper part of the neck in your body. And the reason is because that's where your spinal cord comes off your brain, and we have this really, really important area called your brainstem. So our body wants to know exactly what's happening here, and then also from there it wants to know what's going on with the rest of my spine, right? So we really want to know what's happening with all the alignment. Every single one of your vertebrae has 5 to 7 joints depending on where you look at it. And so it has so much proprioceptive input to know exactly where those joints are sitting, to know exactly what's going on within that system around your spinal cord to protect your nervous system, so that your brain can be at ease with the positioning of your body. So give me 1 second here. So when we start to look at what's going on with the kids that we see in our office that are dealing with all of this proprioceptive seeking, all of this proprioceptive seeking behaviors, we start to think, well, why is there a need for that? Right? We think, well, what's wrong? What's wrong with this child? And I take it a step back and go, there isn't anything wrong at all. These are children that are trying to override and put good information into their brain because their brain is stuck listening to noise. Their brain is stuck with this noisy screamo death metal music playing all of the time. And like I said, remember, if we take a step back, we'll go, you can only have nociception or proprioception happening at any given time. And so if our bodies or our children's bodies have misalignments and malfunctions and something that isn't sending proper information up to your brain, it's having to filter out noise all of the time. And so the answer to that for these kids is to start to try and force good messaging up into their brain. So kids that have an oral fixation that are chewing and grinding, it can be very calming to their brain to start to push that good information back through. Other things that you'll start to see when we have what we call subluxations or misalignment interference patterns in the upper neck or in the neck area, when they're dealing with those patterns and they're dealing with nociception that comes up, you'll start to see kids that deal with tics. They're always, moving in a certain direction because that movement is putting good messaging up into the brain and it's calming for them. So it isn't something that's wrong. It's not something that we say we have to fix this pattern. We have to fix this, this tic or this movement pattern that they're stuck in. We have to fix this oral fixation. We have to fix this energy output. That isn't the answer at all. The answer is, how do we start to locate where the nociception is coming from? How do we start to locate where those interference patterns are coming from so that they don't need all of that proprioceptive input to override and start to calm their brain on their own, right? The really, really cool thing is that's where pediatric chiropractic comes into play. That's where an office specialized in locating these interference patterns that we call subluxation becomes so valuable to the health and function and the future development of these kids, because we can actually sit and we do a whole set of neurologic scans. And I have a picture right here. I'll kind of hold it up. Let's see if I can get it right on there. That's what an EMG and a thermal scan looks like. The one on the top is a thermal scan measuring temperature. The one on the bottom is an EMG scan, which is a muscle scan, which is measuring muscle tension patterns. And so that muscle tension pattern is actually measuring the stuckness, the tension, the energy around all of that proprioceptive or nociceptive input into the brain. So the more colors that we have in here, the more imbalances in colors that we have here on these kids, the more nociception that's going up into their brains. So it gives us a starting point to say, how do we start to reduce these patterns? How do we start to eliminate the nociception so their bodies can start to work normally from the inside out? One of my favorite sayings that I have in our office, in our workshop, is that normal is brilliant. Our job isn't to fix children. Our job isn't to fix broken kids or broken adults. Our job is to help facilitate the expression of normal function within their body, and we do that through the chiropractic adjustment. And when it's done specifically and it's done in sequence in order to start to break these old patterns and allow the body to become more efficient in the way that it moves and the way that it sends this proprioceptive input into the brain naturally, these kids are able to start to heal from the inside out. So it isn't that we're the hero, come to us and get fixed. It's that there's an interference. There's something blocking the way that the nervous system is communicating in these kids. Maybe it's in these adults, maybe it's in you, but there's something blocking the way that your brain and body are communicating normally. And so we need to find that. We need to locate it and put a plan together to start to progressively remove those subluxation patterns so that your body can simply start to work normally. Because when we can do that, brilliance occurs, because we're able to just start to see a calm and an ease come back into the brain of these kids that were previously so, bouncing off the walls and so overproducing of energy and needing all of this input, whether it's weighted blankets or, constant pressure, big joint compression and brushing and, all of these different techniques that we actually give parents to say, how can you help your child with some of this proprioceptive input as they go through the healing process. So it becomes so fun to see kids just start to heal. And once they start to realize what happens when they get adjusted, they absolutely love it. They climb up on the table and they say, Mom, I can't wait to get adjusted. I even have, we have 3 and 4-year-olds that tell their parents that they need to come in and see the chiropractor, because they start to realize what that noise in their brain means. They start to realize what those patterns stuck in their nervous system means as far as the noise that's coming into their brain. And it's incredibly calming and relaxing when you can just put your body at ease through that chiropractic adjustment, and your brain can just work the way that it's supposed to work. So this sounds like your child. If everything I'm saying today it kind of makes sense. You're like, yes, my kids deal with this sensory seeking. They're all over the place. They have these tics, or they have repetitive stimming motions that they do. They have oral fixations. They have all these things that we know are looking for input. They're looking for proprioceptive input. They're seeking this out. Reach out to us and start the conversation, because we want to help. And the number one way that we can help is to get them scanned, to go through our neurologic scans like I showed you on this paper. Because that's the starting point of the conversation that says there's something stuck within this communication system, within their brain and nervous system, that isn't allowing normal communication to happen. And so that's the number one step, is we just get checked, because the most important thing you can do is to find out whether or not we can help you. Another thing you can do is, this is just kind of a short precursor to our full workshops that we do called The Perfect Storm, where we dive deep into all of this sensory stuff behind these subluxation patterns. We talk a lot about causes that can start this through the birth process and early pregnancy things, and there's so much detail that we dig into. So reach out to our office or look right on our Facebook page here for our next live Perfect Storm dinner workshops that we do, because that's really where we get to kind of open up the book on on the scans and really dive deep into what it is that we can do. And we share a ton of amazing stories of healing and potential with the kids that come into our office. So number one thing, if this resonates and you're like, gosh, this is just my kid, then call us up. Don't hesitate. Start the conversation. We absolutely want to chat with you, because if we can help, time is of the essence. We want to make sure we get that taken care of as soon as possible. Otherwise, if you're not in the area local here to Plymouth, Minnesota, we have the National Family Wellness Alliance that we are a part of. It's a nonprofit group nationwide. So National Family Wellness Alliance, and you can go right to their webpage, and they have a zip code finder too. You can type in your zip code and you can find a provider very close to you, or else just reach out to us with wherever you're at, and we'll find a chiropractor for you that works just like we do, that does the scans like we do, and just wants to help your family. So reach out to us, let us know how we can help you. Leave a comment below, and if you have any questions, we want to be a resource to you and your family, so don't hesitate to ask. Thanks so much for tuning in. We can't wait to meet you. We can't wait to meet your family. And remember, normal is brilliant.